most of the city's first responders don't even have access to it. We're talking about Naloxone, a drug that can actually reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. Now, police say that over the weekend, there were 27 overdoses in the downtown core, 4 of them fatal. Currently, paramedics are the only first responders that have access to Naloxone, but that's about to change.
Once the proper medical directives are in place, once we have the proper training done for our staff, and we've acquired the drugs, Toronto Fire Service will have Naloxone on every frontline fire apparatus.
Toronto Fire is...
Fire department, EMS, MDs have been responding to overdose long before the invention of naloxone in 1970. It's rescue breathing, keep anyone alive that suffers any breathing emergency. I want to think, as I watch you all make yourselves physically and emotionally ill, you deny you are being mass murdered. A child knows what they're doing is wrong.
Cressy, who represents Ward 20, joins us now live with his thoughts on the recent overdoses. Thank you for joining us. And I know, obviously, you've been very outspoken about the overdose prevention sites in preventing overdose deaths. What's your reaction first to these series of fatal overdoses this week?
I mean, honestly, I'm tired. We've been talking about overdose deaths in this city for 4 years, and it's getting worse every year. The number of people dying due to overdoses, preventable overdoses, is increasing, and it's escalating rapidly. And
Associate Medical Officer of Health and the Mayor told Joe Cressy to stop teaching this years ago. The fool doctors are getting themselves killed if they suffer any breathing emergency. And they knew that would happen right from the beginning before they started teaching this.
The paramedic service is actually very well prepared. They all have naloxone. The most important thing when they get on site is actually ventilation as well as naloxone. But I think what we heard loud...
Because that precise example was used as to whether other first responders should have naloxone, and it was said that was not the case, that the priority, for example, when the fire department are often the first to arrive should be on ventilation, as Dr. Yaffe just said. But let me just say this about the
disaster or crisis that comes to affect a big community. What's the one thing that often stands in the way of effective dealing with it? It's different protocols people have, different ways they collect information, different information they have, and the whole idea of this partnership, and I commend those who pulled it together before I got involved, is to get everybody around the table so you can start to produce numbers, that they're collected in a common fashion, that they have protocols that are well agreed upon so that when things get worse, if they do, hopefully not, but when they do, that we actually can deal with this as opposed to sort of saying, oh my goodness, this person didn't tell me that, or we have a different system here. This is what causes people to lose their lives, quite literally.
That's right, John. Anybody with any respiratory emergency, they're giving them chest compressions.
Halls just like this one behind me, 123, will very soon have their own naloxone kits, and we got an opportunity to have an exclusive first look at exactly how Toronto Fire is training their crews. Here's a look.
We're going to use the nasal naloxone. It's a single use, so don't test it. One use in the nose.
In under 2 weeks, these Toronto firefighters will have a new, potentially life-saving tool at their disposal.
We are more than often than not the first ones on scene, and certainly our goal is to make sure that we can administer this life-saving drug if required.
Toronto Fire worked closely with officials from Sunnybrook to determine how and when the drug can be administered. By the end of this week, nearly 800 firefighters will be trained to use it in its nasal spray form.
One active kit per truck. There will be a number of spares at the hall, and then additional spares located at both the district chief and platoon chief offices.
The initial cost to equip firefighters with the drug is just shy of $50,000. It'll cost $25,000 annually to maintain. Firefighters in Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver already have naloxone as part of their first aid arsenal. Police in Vancouver do as well, but in Toronto, that's not the case.
The paramedical staff that we have in Toronto is by far the most robust in the country, and they are in attendance with us all of the time.
Meanwhile, Toronto Public Library is signaling its intent to train staff and keep naloxone on hand.
Well, we are a public space, and we have Torontonians in all of our spaces, and this is a crisis that is affecting all Torontonians.
The topic is back on the table Monday, Toronto Public Library's next meeting. They've been given a quote of $145 per naloxone kit.
We have over 550 staff who have first aid training. They will be offered the opportunity to take the naloxone administration training, and I think at this point we're expecting they will be given naloxone after following that training to be used in the branch.
Dave, chest ride?
Yeah.
How often? Once every? Right.
Toronto Fire is slated to have kits on their trucks by October 2nd. By that time, nearly 3,000 firefighters will be trained. Now, Toronto Public Health is providing a lot of training to different groups around the city, and what we're hearing is that over the last several months, year to date, they've actually given out about 1,700 naloxone kits. They say demand has gone up exponentially over the last year and a half, and what we're hearing is that it's not just Toronto Fire, not just the librarians, but also they're seeing families stepping forward, looking to help relatives that may be combating substance abuse issues. So they're saying there really is a great need right now. Farah?
Maureen O'Reilly, president of the Librarians Union, can't get an answer why her librarians were taught the worst possible thing. She won't get an answer because there's 10 million references in the medical literature says what they're doing is dead wrong, increasing morbidity and mortality in non-drug overdoses and drug overdoses, and it's done on purpose. Body language alone gives you away cognitive dissonance. You lie to yourselves and lie to others in order to protect the core belief the government's not a bunch of mass murderers. Read the comment box for the medical info.